Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. With me today, I've got Anthony Bedward from A to B Therapy. So, Anthony is a psychotherapist, and we're going to have a discussion about that, what he does, how he got into it, why he got into it. First of all, though, Anthony, thank you, mate, for giving up your time to come and speak to me today. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Right, let's talk. So, psychotherapy. Tell me a little bit about what you do, mate, and how, I think most importantly, probably why you got into it and how you got into it.
Okay, so I help people who might need a little bit of extra support. It doesn't essentially have to just be mental health or anything like that. It can be you're going through certain issues in life and you just need a bit of support to make you get you through what's going on for you at this moment in time, whether it's the here and now or the there and then. So a lot of people's traumas can be historical.
Yeah.
So at the minute, I work for an organisation called NOTS SVSS, and I support survivors of sexual abuse, which is quite heavy.
Yeah,
And
man. I
a
imagine
lot of
so.
the times, it is in people's past. It's historical stuff, but it still plays out in the here and now. Also, I have my own business, A to B Therapy, where I help everybody. It's not just sexual abuse, even though it's a strange one because now I'm a specialist in certain areas. Not that I'd want to be a specialist in sexual abuse because it's not a great area, but it's an area that needs attention. It needs support from everybody to help others to get better.
One of them things, mate, isn't it? It's a need, like somebody needs to be there to support those
Yeah.
people. It's interesting, actually, because I've looked into going down the counselling and therapy route myself, which is what ended up weirdly is why I'm sat here now, because I started studying psychology and then diverted towards counselling, started volunteering and came here. But the one thing that I was always a little bit conscious of, I guess, was how it would be, and that's what I want to ask you. If you're specialising in sexual abuse and hearing that day in day out, like how do you cope with that? How's that for you? Like, how do you break away from not taking it home?
I'm very good at leaving it in the room and picking it up when I go back in.
Mm,
It's just a skill that I've picked up from before I became a psychotherapist and a counsellor. It was something that was I've learned along the way in working in tough situations. So like before I became a psychotherapist, I was working in a child's care home for a young person that was groomed. And before that, it was young people with behavioural issues. And then before that, I was a deputy manager for a alternative provision for kids that have been expelled from schools. So quite tough roles in terms of
yeah,
the behaviours that are thrown at you. And if you take that kind of thing home with you, it will sit on you. It will play out in different ways. You may start taking it out on your nearest and dearest, whoever you live with, your close friends when you're talking to them on a daily basis, or your family. It starts to seep in, and it becomes a problem if you struggle to leave it at the door. And it's something that people can pick up. It's not easy, but it is something that I would recommend that you try and work on if you do go into certain fields. So it is quite difficult, but it wasn't one of those where it just happened. It took me a good while of
progression to get to
progression,
there.
yeah. Because I remember when I very, very first started getting into the field of helping others, I was in a care home. I must have been about 19 or 20. I've been volunteering for an organisation called Unity, and I needed a job. You can imagine I was playing football, but I need to be working. And my dad's friend was like, "Yeah, it's just like youth work. Can get you started by the end of the month, yada yada yada." And I tell you what, every day I was coming home and moaning to my dad and really angry and really got my back up. Obviously, I didn't have any experience of working in this field with
Yeah,
these types of behaviours. You know, I was hit with the first time, working profession I was hit with racial abuse, physical abuse, and you just expected to a certain level to accept it
so,
and go home and just come back the
and
next
you're
day.
19, 20 at this
Yeah,
time.
yeah. And I used to come back and moan at my dad, and he's like, "Well, you just got to deal with it because nobody can really tell you what to do in this. It's a job at
Yeah,
the end of the day." So, learning how to deal with it from that level gave me such amount of experience to now when I hear and see certain things, it's like, oh, okay, I can deal with that. I can hear that. I can work with it because I feel my background in it was such a tough start to where now it feels a lot lighter, even though on a daily basis
Yeah.
it's heavy. So
It's really important, mate, because I think when you talk, particularly around certain subjects and taboo subjects, and sexual abuse being one. I mean, even me, like personally, you talk about, you say the word sexual abuse, and there's a little part of me that almost wants to recoil. I'm a
yeah,
bit like, oh, it's that everyone knows it's out there and it's rife, but it's a little bit like you want to keep the rug over it or keep it behind the curtain. Um, and obviously, it's important that there's people out there like you that are at the forefront, ready to help people and deal with it head on. Um, I mean, I guess there's probably a hell of a lot of people, no doubt there's going to be people listening to this now that will have suffered a level of sexual abuse and probably never ever spoken about it. I mean, just at this point now, have you got any, is there any advice you would give to somebody that's in that position that might not have spoken about it, might not have had therapy, in terms of a first step?
a good first step is having a conversation with somebody who you respect and whose advice you don't mind taking. Have a conversation, feel out what you need to say, write it down what you need to say if you struggle to find the words, but find somebody, whether that's your mum, your dad, cousin, friend from school, somebody, just to have that first initial conversation with you. Because generally, the other person's reaction will tell you how serious of a situation it is or not. Because generally, a lot of people go, well, why didn't you come and tell me in the first place? Because obviously, it's so difficult when it's quite bad.
Yeah.
And when it is that subject of sexual abuse, it can get really, really bad. Sometimes it's by people you would never expect. And it's difficult for you then to go and share that with somebody. So you hold on to it for so long. But that would be my first bit of advice. Speak to somebody who you care about and cherish and respect their views and who will sit and listen to you. Don't just go and tell anybody who's willing to listen. Don't just decide to get drunk and then start splurting out, which a lot of people do because alcohol will allow certain things to come out. But if you can appease that by having conversations with somebody you care about first, and then if that person can't give you the answers you need or what you want from that, then you start looking at maybe I need professional help here. And that's the
It's good
after
advice,
effects.
mate. I think I'd probably be right in saying that I think a lot of when it comes to sexual abuse, there's a lot of people that have suffered those abuses in childhood.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is because when you're a child and you don't know any different, it doesn't feel. I think everyone as an adult will recognise sexual abuse, or most people, the high proportion of people. As a child, it's probably flipped because because they're so malleable in terms of what they know is right and wrong,
Yeah.
and they can be so easily influenced by an adult, particularly. And that the assumption is that the adults know right and wrong. Therefore, if they say this is right or wrong, then they go with it. I think those abuses that happen in childhood that are kind of normalized at that point, then you don't realize until you're an adult just how bad that thing was or how wrong that thing was. And I guess through the passage of time, you might have gone 10, 20 years before, like since that event has happened. I guess most people, it can be quite traumatic to lift the lid
Yeah,
on that again.
definitely. And some of the things that you see throughout who may have gone through certain things, they may live life with no boundaries because obviously the biggest boundary may have been broken when they was a child. So moving
Okay.
forward, you don't know boundaries. You don't know how to handle certain situations if the worst of the worst happened to you as a child. Because when you're a child, adults are meant to look after you. That is what is written. That's how it should be. But that's not always the case. So you learn to deal with it. You learn to not talk about certain things. You learn to not have boundaries, and either you can walk all over other people's boundaries, or you allow yourself to be walking all over because you don't know where that line is of the boundary, because it's been skewered from so young, and that's what you
Yeah.
carry into your adult life.
I mean, see, I'm a big advocate. I mean, this is a bit of a subject talking about what we're talking about, but I'm a big advocate of the value in trauma in terms of the traumatic events that you've gone through. You can't do anything about now, but if you can find some value from it, like going through adversity at a young age, that then makes you more resilient when you're an adult. So, because like you were talking then just about the risk aversion, I mean, I know, like, say in business, people who are more willing to take risks can sometimes reap the rewards of doing that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, this is, one of the reasons I was interested to talk to you today. Let's pause there a moment to thank this episode's sponsors, Zinza. Have you heard of Zinza's Perma White? Perma White is tough, it's scrubbable, and it's the best mold-resistant finish to use in high-moisture areas like kitchens and bathrooms. We use this in our business all the time. It's designed to resist cracking, peeling and blistering for up to 7 years, and it can be tinted to any RAL or NCS colour on the chart that you want at selected retailers. It's water-based, it's low odour, it's easy to work with, it's quick to recoat. What more could you want in a bathroom quality and kitchen quality emulsion? If you haven't already, go and check out Zinza's Perma White. Thank you to Zinza. Let's get back to the episode. I find psychology and development fascinating. And ever since I started looking into my own, if I'm honest, my own sort of like personality traits and attributes, and then pulling the thread and going backwards to like, well, why do I act like that? Or why do I think like that? And then working out that it was some kind of childhood trauma or input that has led to that behaviour. It is fascinating, and I guess the point I was trying to make here is that sometimes something wrong and traumatic can happen that can then lead to an attribute in life that you might actually lean on because it's given you, maybe it's independence, possibly that independence is actually as a result of you struggle to trust people.
Yeah, definitely.
No, so it's I guess there's probably people out there that would be listening that would to think that lid is best left screwed on tight. But they would probably, if they examine their behaviour and pattern of behaviour, like you mentioned, like the risks and boundaries, that actually it's linking the two. I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is linking some kind of personality trait that might be detrimental to your life back to its origin. And you kind of, would I be right in saying you have to address that origin in order to create long-term change?
I would say so, yeah. You definitely have to address certain issues that you may have come across in life. Sometimes it's easier to bury and just move on, but your life, things don't just happen for nothing. Things generally happen for a reason. There is a reason why you make certain decisions in life, because something has happened further down the line that you may not have looked into, and it does play out. It does come back in some strange way. Things do play out. Sometimes it can be positive for you, like you said. Sometimes it's negative. I know for myself, where when I decided to study psychotherapy, and it wasn't just...
What took you to that point, though, Anthony? Because that's a big leap, isn't it? But like, because it's not the typical career, mate. For a bloke like you or a bloke like me,
no,
it's not the typical career to go into. So what sent you there?
So I was in my last, I think it was about 2017. So we're going back a little bit. And the company that I was working for, the alternative provision, we was getting made redundant. And there was about 20 members of staff. And then there was only going to keep 4 or 5. And it wasn't managers are going to definitely stay or certain mentors. Whoever applied for the jobs and you get it, you stay. And I thought a little bit aggrieved that I've been here for 7 years and there was no loyalty in terms of you didn't make me feel like I should be staying here. And then it was, well, I don't have no qualifications. I worked my way up to become a deputy manager from a mentor when I first started, and
Okay.
I struggle to read and write. I'm not academic by any stretch of the imagination, so
Really?
uni was never on the cards. I got to this age in life, and I always wanted to go, but I was never going to go to university if it weren't the right course. So then I was sitting talking to some of my friends, and I was like, "Well, all right, let's break it down. What are you good at? Good at listening, good at talking. People seem to like coming to me with their issues and problems, and I'm able to help in certain things. So basically, I just equated what good skills I had and what career was next best, and psychotherapy came up, and counselling. And I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't obviously nobody in my family or friends or anybody who I didn't know any counsellors personally.
Mm.
And it was just one of those. I was on my lunch break walking through town, and I'd seen the local college, and I knew they did a 6-week unaccredited course. And I went and spoke to the careers advisor, and we spoke for about half an hour. And she was like, "I'm going to be honest with you. There's no point you coming here because you've got too much experience." She pulled up this website, the Sherwood Institute of Psychotherapy, and we had a look on their website, and it happened to be, this was the Thursday I was speaking to her, and there happened to be a 10-week course starting the following Monday. And she's like, "I don't know if you'll get in, but they've got a 10-week course that will be," it was a level 2 ABC counselling concepts. So it was just to show you the introductory steps to psychotherapy. And I thought, why not? I'll just go and see if I like it. It was one Monday a week for a 10-week course, and I loved it. It
Okay.
was incredible. And then finished the course, and it's like, well, now what? I had discussions with my tutor at the time, and I was like, well, by doing this course, you get an interview. So you might as well go for the interview if you apply and just see what happens.
An interview for what?
So I had to interview for the degree course at
Oh,
Sherwood
okay.
Institute of Psychotherapy. Yeah,
Right.
you have to apply. I went a month later, and my course coordinator, love her to death. She's helped me so much over the years in terms of, we'll get into that bit where she helped me. But when I went for the interview, one of the things that she was saying was, if you come here and you study, it's going to be extremely difficult, more difficult than I thought. I believed her at the time.
Yeah.
But you're going to make such a difference for the black community. Now, as you can imagine, there's not too many black people in psychotherapy. There's not too many people in Nottingham who were studying. I think I fell in the 3 percentile of the whole uni.
3%.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, I don't want to diversify too far, but why is that? When you say there's not many of black people in psychotherapy or counselling, why?
My guess is, in the black community, therapy wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. Me and my dad speak a lot now since I've become a psychotherapist, because I can now manage those conversations. Whereas before, he would say, "Me and your mum have got problems like everybody else, but we keep them all in house."
Yeah.
So everybody, and I believe in the black community, we keep things in house, and whether that's through shame, embarrassment, on people judging us, people just choose to keep them things to themselves. And so having counselling be a first choice as a career,
Yeah.
it wasn't one. So
Unheard of.
it's very, very unheard of. So she's telling me, you're going to make such a big difference. Obviously, I'm sat here thinking, bloody hell, it's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to be put on this. And like I said, in terms of me as an academic, struggle to read and write. I hated school. I found out in my second year I was dyslexic. I thought I was an idiot, to be honest with you. But this just wasn't picked up during school. So maybe if it was, who knows? But
See, we haven't spoken for long, but I can tell you're an intelligent man. You're sat there.
Yeah.
So it surprised me a little for you to say that you struggled at school and struggled to read and write. But obviously, if you're dyslexic, then that explains
it explained
where
a
your
lot.
struggles were. Yeah.
It explained a lot, and it was. So before I found out I was dyslexic, so let's go back to the interview. So you have to prove that not only can you study, so passing the 10-week course was a help, and I had 2 GCSEs from before that went towards it. But you also had to prove that you've been to the bottom and you can pull yourself back up.
Okay.
That was one of the requirements as well, which is, they don't tell you that before you go
Yeah.
to the interview. You're expected to be able to share that.
How do you prove that you've been to the bottom?
It goes on what you told them in terms of the story, whether it's true or not. Mine was extremely true. I've been to the depths, unfortunately, through certain things in my life, and you have to be able to not give up on yourself. And sometimes you can. And it's a strange one, me telling you this, because there are points in my life and during uni where I was going to give up on myself. Like I said before, so when I started year 2, I failed 2 of my assignments. This was COVID time as well. So I'm sat there thinking, I can't do it. I got pulled up for plagiarism twice. My tutor wasn't giving me what I needed during lectures. I just wasn't getting the course material. And studying at home just wasn't for me. So I'm telling my course coordinator, I think it's time for me to just be realistic. I'm thinking of leaving because I'm just struggling too much. This time I'd started a new job. I was helping young people through. I was a lead. Have you ever heard of Princess Trust?
Yeah.
Princess
Funnily enough,
Trust. Yeah.
years ago, mate. So I took over my family business at 17.
Yeah.
But through my circumstances, I'd had a big fallout with my dad at the time, and I had to get some funding. So I actually set up. Although I took over my business, I took a loan out from the Princess Trust
Okay. Yeah.
back at 17 to buy like my first set of tools. Basically, I think I borrowed about $2,500. I think it was at the time, just to get me set up, pay for my first like fucking Yellow Pages advert or whatever it was back in the day. But yeah, I'm aware of them.
Yeah. So I was delivering that course. There was a 12-week course to 16 to 25-year-olds, and it wasn't going great. I said COVID times. There was what was that thing that there was passing out to people? I forget what it was. Furlough.
Oh yeah.
So during this time, I've been furloughed as well. So in my head, it was like, I've been furloughed twice. I know my job's coming towards the end, and I failed 2 assignments. Like, it's just not going right. And I was willing to just give it all up. And I spoke to my course coordinator, and she's showing me how the first year went. She's telling me not to give up, reminding me that the path that I wanted to go down. And she was just asking me certain things as well, because I was telling her I can't concentrate. My mind's all over there when the tutor's talking and this and this. And she's like, oh, it sounds like you might have dyslexia. I got put through for a screening, and it turns out, lo and behold, I've got dyslexia. And then after that, the support that I was given from the university, I was given laptop programs to help me with English and my language and everything. The things that I was struggling with, and I was, somebody was supporting me with my assignments. She was checking them through for me. You know, the help moving forward from that moment was unreal. So it's like, I can't give up. I got to keep going. And then I got to the 3rd year. So I left that job. Fast forward, obviously I can't say everything, but fast forward to my 3rd year, writing my dissertation. I'm now a mentor at a boxing provision, and they've just set up an education provision for young kids.
Brilliant, yeah.
So I'm picking kids up, bringing them here, there, and everywhere, making sure that they're staying out of trouble, supporting them, trying to help them get jobs and all that stuff. The money wasn't great when you're mentoring, and I needed to leave, and that's when I went back into the care home when I was working with the young person who had been groomed. It didn't go great because the manager, he weren't really a fan of mine, because I've gone into this job. I told them at the interview that I'm just here to help so I can pass my final year of the course.
Yeah.
I don't plan to be here long term. And he didn't like that. The fact that I was
Yeah.
given the job and then I've gone in, even though I've got all this experience now of working with young people, I'm doing this great course. For him, it weren't good enough. So we was kind of clashing a little bit. Fast forward, hated it through him because we didn't really vibe well. It was difficult. And then I've handed in my dissertation, so I've just grinded out and I've knuckled down, really, really struggled. And people are like, why didn't you just go stack shelves at ASDA? Because it would have been a lot more easy for you mentally writing your dissertation. And obviously I do struggle with certain things.
Right,
But I was like, you know what? Even though it's difficult, I still want to give back to people. I still know I can help others.
How big was the dissertation?
10,000 words.
10,000.
Yeah.
Do you know what, mate? I'll just highlight that because I got halfway through doing BSc honours in psychology, and possibly a little similar to you. So when I picked that up, I hadn't done anything academic for 20 years. So to go from being non-academic, not doing well at school, to doing a degree and doing a 10,000 word dissertation, mate, all credit to you, because that's fucking huge.
Yeah.
And I know that because of the assignments. I think the biggest assignment I did was, I don't know, it was maybe a quarter of that. It was like 2,000 words or 2,500 words, nowhere near dissertation level, because I didn't go to the end because of the fact that it turns out studying psychology doesn't help with getting a counselling career. But all credit to you, mate, because as I say, I know how alien it is to go back into academia when you've been out of it or potentially never really been in it. I think I went through school. I did okay at school myself. And I did the first year of my A-levels, and then at that point decided I'm done. I've had enough of education, started up my business, and that's where I've been ever since. So, you know, academia and jumping through academic loopholes and things like referencing and stuff like that was completely alien. And not only alien, but I struggle, mate. I'm not great with authority. I'm not great with being told what to do. So when you get told all these academic like things like referencing, and I'm sat there going, why does it matter?
Why does it matter?
What's the point? And I mean, I remember, oh Christ, I threw my dummy out once, mate, because I put an assignment in and I got marked down for like not using italics in the right place on a reference. And I was just like, how does that mean that I'm not good enough? Do you know what I mean? How does that mark me down? Anyway, we go off on a tangent ranting about academia, but what I was trying to get at, mate, was all credit to you for doing it, man. It's massive.
I do look back now in the position I'm in that I'm so thankful that I stuck at it, because it's opened up a lot of doors that I never realized. So now even though I say I'm not academic, I'm an advocate of people going and getting qualifications. We'll say it, sing it to the rooftops, because that period before I started, I did apply for other managers' jobs. So even though in body I was a deputy manager, and I've been managing for like a year and a half, 2 years now. But when I was applying for jobs, first thing people are asking for, where's your qualifications? You've got no qualifications. So it means a lot. So fast jump back. So when we got into it, and this young person had come into the home, and quite difficult, you know, her behaviours, everything was quite difficult, but her background was, you know,
she'd been groomed.
She'd been through a lot. So it was to be expected. And even though the manager wasn't my biggest fan, he loved the way I worked and how I managed her. And he actually wanted other staff to learn how I managed her, to bring that into their own practice. But then after I handed in my dissertation, one thing led to another, and it just got too much for the whole team, and it was easier for me to leave. Again, racial abuse, physical abuse. Now,
are we talking racial and physical abuse from who?
The young person.
Okay.
And what was happening were, because I was standing up to her behaviours, she didn't like that. So she started to target. And then other staff members were then put at risk because they were expected to deal with the situation.
Right.
You know, holds and certain things, and certain times you can't get there quick enough. And it's just difficult for that other member of staff who essentially could be getting along with the young person. As soon as she would target me, they was told to step in and try and deflect and do whatever. And then the last time, it just got really, really out of hand. My colleague, she ended up getting her hair pulled out. I've had a massive boulder thrown at me. I don't know where she found the strength to pick up this boulder and throw at me, but she did. And then we've eventually calmed down the situation. She broke the staff car window as well, just off on one. So we're out on the streets. That's why you always need your badge as well, because people are stopping and, oh, what's going on? Oh, we're at work.
Yeah.
Generally, people are okay with it because you are at work, and the area we was, they kind of knew that there was a home in that that area. But then we've sorted out this situation, and then I'm sat there thinking to myself, I don't need this anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. And what really pissed me off was that this was the Friday, so we've gone home, and me and my same colleague had a shift on the Sunday. So I would like to think there was only a small company with about less than 10 homes. So all the managers now have spoken. Even the directors have found out about this. There was no phone call of support to either staff member.
Really?
There was nothing put in place to help and support. So by the time we've gone home, even though we've made up with the young person, she's forgot about this. We've turned up on the Sunday. Oh, I'm going to make your life hell. And my work colleague was, I can't do it. She's had to ring in sick and go. They couldn't get any cover, so the manager had to come in, and me and him were talking. And then the next day I handed in my notice. I was like, you know what, this isn't for me. It's not just that I can't handle the levels of abuse, which is one thing, but what I hate is that as a company, if you're not supporting me as one of your workers, there's no point me being here. And when you're in that sector, if the home isn't supporting you, it's difficult to stay.
I would imagine, mate, there's two very different sides of the coin within helping people in that respect, isn't there? Because I would have thought that young person would have had help sort of like bestowed upon her, rather than the area that you're possibly working in now where people are asking for help. So it's two different things, isn't it? One being given it and one asking for it, and being given it when they don't really realise they need it or want it, and they're just looking for somebody to
she wasn't ready for it. She wasn't ready for it. So unfortunately, she was young. She was probably mentally younger than her actual age as well. But then I handed in my notice and I'm not staying. Can't do it anymore. I didn't have a job. And I've just handed in my dissertation, handed in my notice, and my grandma was moaning, what are you doing? Like, you got to work. You know, got my own place, I've got bills to pay. What are you doing? Because I can't help you again. Just for reference, my grandma paid for my last year of uni, so I could move on from year 2 to year 3, because there's a lump sum that needed paying, and my grandma stepped in. So without my grandma paying that, who knows? So she's probably thinking, bloody hell, I'll money back at some stage. You need to be working. And then 2 weeks later, I got offered an interview with a psychotherapy company called Imara. And then I started working for them, like 4 weeks later, after all the checks, started working for them, and it was just like a godsend. It was like, this is what I knew I needed to do. I fitted in straight away. But again, it was similar in terms of dynamics. There was only 2 male counsellors. I think 5 in the whole team, because there's not just therapists that work for them. There was ISVAs, there was different levels as well, and it was only 5 men, two counsellors. And that's what I found in this field, is that the number of men that work in it is very, very minimal. Very, very minimal.
Why do you think that is? Like, is that just... I mean, so when I set the podcast up, the Talking Tradesman, and underneath it, on the logo, it says "Let's Talk." The reason I put that on there was when I started this thing, what I thought was, men don't like talking.
Yes.
You know, let's get men talking. So that was the whole background of it. And I guess that translates through to also those that are there to listen and give help. is that if less men are willing to talk, then less men realise that there's that requirement or need for people to, such as yourself, to be there. Was that ring true to you?
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly a thing, because obviously, if you was to bring up the percentages of who's in seeking support in the services, it's very minimal men as well.
Okay.
I think since I've been working in this sector for the past 2 years, and not including my placement, I think I've worked with 6 men.
And roughly equating to how many women in comparison?
Oh, 100 plus.
So like, yeah, so less than 5% of
Yeah,
your client base has
yeah,
been men.
yeah.
Wow. And yet, to point out, it's quite apparent that when it comes to mental health, men by demographic are the ones struggling.
Yes.
75% of all suicides are men. It's the biggest killer of men under 50 is people taking their own life. So that to me screams that men need support and help and have it pointed out to them, yet we're not actively reaching out for it, are we?
No, no. It's so difficult in terms of it's that shame element, and in society, you are told you're meant to be big, you're meant to be strong, you're meant to be shoulder all responsibilities. You're not meant to be weak. You can't cry. You can't do certain things. This is what society has been telling us for years and years and years. If you've got a problem, keep it to yourself. Keep that to yourself and go about your day. But it starts to chip away and chip away, chip away. And even myself, I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't times where I didn't want to talk. For instance, as a course requirement, you are expected to have therapy yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Expected. You are told before you sign up for this course, you need to have a therapist. Me, I tried to avoid this for as long as possible. So long, I almost got kicked out 8 months into my first year.
Really?
So it was, you either start therapy in 2 weeks or you're not going to be able to hit the requirements for the rest. So each year you have to hit certain requirements.
There's such an irony around it, Anthony, isn't there?
Crazy.
Because, and the reason I'm sat here smiling is because I had this conversation earlier today with somebody else about myself.
Yeah.
And I'll sit there and I'm this advocate for reaching out for support, talking. I'm shit at it myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very much do as I say and not as I do, because I'm exactly the same, mate. I'll bottle everything. I'll try and do everything on my own. I find it very difficult to reach out for support. And the highlighted thing at the moment for me is the new studio that I've got going on. I've had so many people, mate, offer time, donations, items, let me come down and help you do this. I just don't accept it. It's not, and I don't do it from a place of ignorance. I just find it very difficult to accept support and sort of say, yeah, please do come and help me. I don't know whether that's because I don't feel like I'm worthy of that support, or whether I feel I've got to carry the burden on my own shoulders. I'm trying to evaluate my own pattern of thought on it, but I do find it very difficult to accept support. I think if a friend were to reach out to me and say, look, I'll give you a day to come and help you, I would feel guilty in accepting it. So maybe it's because I don't feel worthy of that support. I don't know.
It's definitely a learnt behaviour that you've picked up. And it's difficult for men to overcome that and just ask for help, And like I said, I know it personally that when I started to ask for help, things just got so much better. And I won't lie to you. So I'm on the phone, 2 weeks, this is the demand. You need to start, or you're being removed from the course. This is what it is. I went to the Yellow Pages, picked out a counsellor who was closest to me, and I was quite lucky. I won't lie to anybody there. I was quite lucky because we hit it off like a house on fire.
Okay.
So we're now a few years later, and I still speak to her. I still see her. Even though I'm qualified, I still go to therapy. It's one of the best things that I've ever done. One of the best things I've ever done. So I recommend to anybody. If you find that person, therapy can be easier. I'm not going to say it's easier, because it's not, because you do have to go through certain conversations, certain things. You have to go to certain levels. And there was times where it was extremely difficult for me to say certain things and bring up certain things, because you are going to the deepest levels. Now, it's going to be a bit different for the general client and me, because obviously for me, there's that learning aspect in it. So
Yeah.
I was pushed a bit more generally than a client potentially would be pushed, because I needed it for the learning aspect. But in terms of me as a man, I was able to go to certain places that I'd never been before. So I'm telling her things that I never even spoke to my dad about. My dad's my best friend, and I've never told him any of these things. You know, I'm still very, very good friends with people who I went secondary school with, and I've never told them certain things. You know, I would consider them as close as my best friends as well. You know, so I'm not being able to speak to these people, and they're people who I could ring the phone and they'll be there for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not able to speak to them on that level. But I tell you what, after therapy, after counselling, I'm now very reflective. I'm not able to talk to people about certain parts of my life. I can ask for help and not feel ashamed or embarrassed for asking for help. I can come on a podcast and say I struggle to read and write. How many people would openly say that? Because I'm not embarrassed. That shame isn't part of it for me anymore. And it's one of those, it's probably cliche to say, I know if I can do it, you can too. But it is one of those that I'm not sitting here telling you I'm better than anybody else. You know, I've gone through stuff just like anybody else. But once you feel better from seeking that support, you're not going to want anything else other than feeling better for yourself. And it helps you in terms of setting boundaries. I was crap at boundaries. You know, there were certain things that I look back and would be like, bloody hell, used to do certain things where I look, and I'm like, I would never do that now. Or if I didn't like certain things, I would never say, because I was ashamed to stand up for myself, because I was fearful, because I thought I needed certain people in my life. Going to therapy showed me who's good for you and who's not, and what kind of scenarios are better for you. And you stop doing certain things that aren't right for you, because you do become more reflective about things and how you are and how things affect you in life. So there's certain things I know that I used to do that I would never do again. But that's all thanks to therapy and talking to the right person with that. It does help. She has a PhD and she was trying to push me to go get my master's. She's like, you can do your PhD too as well. I was like, no, I can't.
That's a good place to pause a moment and say a big thank you to this episode's sponsors, Q1. Q1 offer premium masking solutions, the perfect choice for the professional that demands perfection. Q1 tapes deliver clean, sharp lines every single time. They're designed for superior adhesion and easy removal, leaving no adhesive residue. In addition to the tapes, Q1 offer a whole range of surface protection. Using Q1, your projects look professional and the results speak for themselves. Available in most stores and online at q1tapes.com. The Talking Tradesman would like to offer our sincere thanks to Q1 for offering your support to raise mental health awareness and supporting the podcast from day one. I can speak personally, and I say that I use Q1 in my business on every project. With that said, let's get back to the episode. Mate, you know what? I was just sat fully absorbing that, mate, because I've not a few times, for years now, I've thought that I would like to do therapy. I'm completely open to it, big advocate for it. I think it's great. And it's great to sit and listen to you sort of divulge your experience of it, because I think if more people took it up, I think it could really benefit a lot of people. I'd love to do it myself. And I'm going to come out of all the cliche comments of, but I haven't had time.
Yeah.
But the reality is I have got time.
Yeah.
I allocate my time to what I feel important. And I'm becoming more aware that I quite often put myself at the bottom of that list. Whether that's stuff like, I've barely gone to the gym this year. I used to be in the gym a lot. But I will sacrifice myself first all the time.
Yeah.
So if I'm short on time because I've got 5 things to do, I will sacrifice the thing that benefits me first. and put everybody else ahead. And it's the same as counselling and therapy, because I would come out with the stock response: I haven't got time, or I can't afford it. I can and I can.
Yeah.
But I allocate that time and I allocate that money to other things and other people, because I put myself and my own, my own needs, as it were, at the bottom of the list, which is something I know I need to work on.
Yeah.
So at some point, hopefully, I will go, and because I've got a lot of stuff that I need to unpack. I know I need to unpack, and going through the whole journey that I've been through in terms of knowledge and educating myself around psychology, it's fascinating. And I'd like to sit there and do that. So I think it's in my future at some stage, mate. And I appreciate you sharing what you have, because I'm sat here again thinking, fuck, I need to do that, man. I really do.
Good.
But
My hope is moving forward, not even just from this, and I hope this is a huge help, is to inspire other men, young men, teenagers, boys, to start to want to open up first and foremost, and maybe think that this could be a viable career.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then it's, if I'm not going to do it as a career, but okay, maybe I do need to talk to somebody about what happened to me years ago now. Maybe it is the time. That's what my hope is, to inspire others to understand therapy can be a good thing, and it's not taboo. And that being said, I'm also working on a book. And I know I've spent time saying I'm not academic, so it probably sounds a bit,
Not at all,
a
mate.
bit mad. Why am I working on it? It's not academic, but it's basically going to be the first steps for men to be willing to open up.
Okay.
And that's what I'm working on as a side project at this minute.
Is that based on your own personal experience, or?
No, just something that I want to give. And so I've wrote a little short story. I've got poems in there, affirmations, free space for anything that comes up for you during.
So from like a self-help perspective,
yeah. Just it's got pictures. It's not too wordy. So I'm just in the works. Hopefully, at the beginning of next year.
Anthony, once that's out, mate, I want a signed copy.
Yes.
I've had a couple of guests who have come on who've got written books now.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get a signed copy of everyone. And what I'm going to do in the new studio is have, a display area or a stand of these books from guests. So I want a copy of that one, mate. Make it happen.
100%.
But yeah, I'm really glad to hear it, mate. It needs people, and you're doing such a service. Because I'm sitting here, not blowing smoke up your ass here, but feeling inspired, like you're inspiring me to go and seek therapy.
Thank you.
So it's working, but it needs people like you and more people like you that are prepared to do that, have these conversations, sit and talk about the benefits of therapy. It's really powerful, mate. It's so important because, and the thing I want to speak to you about is the process of therapy as well. Because I think, again, a lot of us, we're scared of what we don't know. And a lot of us don't really know what to expect. I guess I've got a stereotypical image of therapy, right? Middle class white man or white woman with glasses pushed up the nose and a chaise lounge, really quite stuffy and quite almost like medical in terminology. In terms of, if I go to therapy, that's what I'm going to get. I'm going to get somebody examining me, looking into me and trying to ask me questions that I'm going to be uncomfortable with. Yeah. That's the stereotypical view of therapy that I had prior to learning a little bit about it. I think maybe it might be a bit educational, actually, to touch on that. But in terms of therapy, there are different modalities, aren't there? There are different methods. So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Do you want to, you're probably much better than me to explain what they are and what you do. Just so to let any of the listeners know, what different sorts of therapy are available and what you do.
There's lots of different modalities. Can't really talk on different ones that I didn't learn, but generally the biggest one that's out there at the moment, I would say, is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's changing mindset.
That's the one you get on the NHS, isn't it? Which is why people know it.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest one out there at the moment. But what I do is person-centered. So it's about building a relationship with your counselor or therapist and getting to know each other. So there's times where, when it's appropriate, to share a little bit of what I've been through. So if you come and tell me certain things, just so you know that you're talking to somebody who also gets it. That also, it's not I'm coming to speak to somebody and they have minimal life experience in terms of they don't know what I'm talking about, so they can't get it. So you're able to just share a little bit of yourself, of that realness, just to allow the client to start building with you. And it's one of those where I could see you for years if that's what you need. But therapy is one of those where I was told by my tutor that it's the only career where you're working towards your redundancy. So I'm not meant to see you forever. You're meant to come and see me for a period of time, and then you're meant to take the learning from that and continue your life. Whether you come back to me at a later date because you just might need a top up or whatever, but that is the plan behind it. You're not meant to have therapy for the rest of your life. Go there, get what you need, and then carry on, and then share that with others. But it's definitely about building that relationship, getting to know your therapist, because it makes it a lot easier. You know, I started with a new client the other day, and one of the first things that she was saying, I was happy to see you, because when you just get an email saying, "Oh, you're going to meet this therapist," there's no pictures, they don't see me, I don't see them, and they turn up. I let them in, and she said after the session, "I was so happy to see you because it made me feel a lot more comfortable. I was expecting a white man in a suit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes I wear my tracksuit. I've got my hat on sometimes. I've got dreadlocks, multicolored. So I probably break a lot of stereotypes for people in the therapeutic profession. Nobody expects to see me come and open the door, but when they do feel a lot more comfortable. That's not saying that's going to be right for everybody. It's not one shoe fits all. Maybe some people will see me and think I don't want to talk to, but I know for me, this works for me because I'm able to feel so comfortable that I'm able to give you my best. I know if I wore a suit to work every day, I wouldn't feel comfortable like that. Yes, I may look great. I'm sure I do look very nice in a suit, and I'm going to wear one later. But on a day-to-day basis, I would much prefer to wear my tracksuit and my hat and be comfortable with you, because this is how I dressed when I went to uni. This was how I dressed when I was in my struggles, and this is how I dress now I'm past those.
It's about that connection, mate, isn't it? And the realness of it.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, just to probe into that, like, how do you find? Because if you're one of few men in the profession, and then one of few black men in the profession, how do you find that's received by clients? In terms of, do you get anybody that sort of think, I'd rather speak to a woman? Have you had any sort of pushback, or even maybe the other way around, where more people are like, actually, I'd rather speak to Anthony because,
It does happen. Like at the new company where I'm at, I think there's 60 of us and there's only 2 men.
That's amazing. That's mad.
Yeah.
Like, there's very few other work demographics where you'd experience that. And I don't know why, but I'd never really realised or thought that would be the case with therapy or counselling. I didn't think it would be so heavily dominated that way.
Whether it's because of the sector of sexual abuse.
Possibly.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that every single organisation that does therapy, there aren't going to be men. There will be, but specifically in that sector, there's only been 2 at the 2 companies that I've worked at. And there has been times where a client has said, it's not me personally, because it's never personal.
Yeah, of course.
It's just that my abuser was a man, and I feel it feels difficult to open up to a man, and I can't change that for you, unfortunately.
Yeah, of course.
There's work that can be done around that, but ultimately, if that comfort level isn't there, it's best that I step aside and somebody else steps in. There's no hard feelings. I just want you to receive the help that you need. And then maybe you and the female therapist can do that work. It doesn't have to essentially be me. But in my personal A to B, like, it's never come up. It's actually, because you can see me, you can go onto my website or my Instagram page and see me before you choose to book in, you know. So and it has gone in my favor. And but ultimately, sometimes, not ultimately, but sometimes it has an adverse effect. Like, for instance, a lot of the people where I live know me. So some people I can't therapy anyway.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I can't do it. And then there's a lot of worries that because I know you so well, your friend might not come to me because they're fearful that I'm going to tell you their bit. So there's a lot of that.
Which, of course, you would never do.
I would never do. But it's still a thought in people's minds. And that's justifiable, yeah. You know, because if you knew me 10 years ago, I'm not the same person who I was 10 years ago as who's sat here right now. I'm totally different to how I was 10 years ago. You know, I probably sound quite ambitious right now and I want to inspire others and I want to do 10 years ago, but I wasn't sure about anything. I just wanted to get drunk every Friday and Saturday night and
I can resonate with that, mate. I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same. I sort of got onto the journey. The word journey, mate, I don't really like it, but it's appropriate.
Yeah.
So I got into my journey within like psychology and learning about it, and that I was 30. I'm 40 now. But the Russ that was sat here at 25 or probably even 30, to be honest, yeah, totally different, mate.
Yeah.
Lad culture, drinking, partying, all that kind of thing. That was me. But yeah, but that's one of those things, isn't it? People do change. People can change. You can reevaluate your priorities and what's important in life. And what I found with doing what I've done, and the first step for me was when I started volunteering at the Samaritans.
Okay.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Gave me purpose. And all of a sudden, mate, it was like, I don't know whether you had this moment at some stage, but by the sounds of it, you've been working around helping people a lot longer than me. But I hadn't. So I've gone from running a business very much looking at profit lines and business. And although I only ever did that, to be honest, like I said, I've never really put myself at the top of the pile. So even with business, it was to support my family.
Yeah.
It was, I was providing for them. But stepping into the role at Samaritans and helping others, it was like a light came on that I didn't know was there. Like, I didn't know that box needed ticking until it was ticked. But then it gave me the purpose that I didn't know I needed, but kind of didn't complete me, because that sounds cheesy as fuck, doesn't it? But it did something that I didn't know I needed. And I've just lent into it from there, and that's what's led me to here now and doing these podcasts in the hope that somebody listens to what we're talking about, resonates, and it provides help, whether it provides that spark to go and get therapy or just start to look, just start to look into behavior patterns, or if there's something you're not happy with, some behavior pattern that you keep repeating, just to look into the origin of that. That's enough, just that little spark of thought. And if these conversations that I'm having can do that, that then gives me the purpose. So it's self-fulfilling, really. It's not. I don't see it as a selfless action, because I'm definitely getting something from this. Yeah. How did that sort of come about for you? Like, was that dead early, or?
Do you know what? I was quite lazy, so it was always football. I'm going to be next big footballer. Unfortunately, doesn't always come to plan, and then it's like, I love to party, I love drinking, I love that culture that you said, that lad culture, and it mixed with football. So when I dropped into the semi-pro, it just became, we'll just go out. But I didn't find my thing after football. There was nothing that clicked or fitted. So I'd just go from job to job and nothing really sat. And then started volunteering at Unity. And that was an organisation that used to try and help gangs, and stop that gun
Okay.
culture and
Because you're
gang
from
life.
Nottingham, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I know a few years back, I mean, Nottingham was the gun crime capital of the
Yeah.
UK, wasn't it?
It used to be called Shottingham
That was it.
at
Yeah,
one
yeah.
time, you know. And if you're not part of that, it's difficult to find a place where to fit, because I'm not gangster.
Mm.
You know, there was a time where I thought I might be gangster. Not for me. When people are trying to come at you with weapons, and I remember getting hit with a pool cue. So, oh, don't like this. Not for me. I'm not, you know. And then when you get arrested and you hear them the cell door shut, and then it was pretty evident pretty early for me that wasn't for me. But
Yeah.
in terms of friendships and knowing people and gaining respect, there was a bit of notoriety about that kind of life. So I understood why people
Drawn to it.
were drawn to it, you know, because a lot of women liked you more. A lot of you had money, you know, selling drugs and doing whatever. There was things that came with that side of it. Lots
Yeah.
of positiveness. And then if you're quite shy, quite passive and not working, and you're just kind of there. And I was in between not working and not wanting to be a gangster either. So I'm just kind of sat in the middle, but still doing stupid things. I won't lie to anybody. I have sold drugs before. I've done certain things that, you know, now I look back, it's all part of my journey, with that word again, but I don't like it, but I'll never, you know, I won't be angry at that young person because of that.
Do you know what though, Anthony? That it's all part of the ingredients that make you who you are today.
Yeah.
And having that experience to lean back on that perspective, it just allows you to understand. And I'm the same, mate. I lose track of the things that I'm not proud of that I did in my, you know, man, 15 to 30, you know. But it gives you that perspective, and I think that's what gives you that realness and probably makes you unique in your position now. Because people pick up on people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You get a good
I
sense.
know for a fact I would rather, if I approach counsellors, I'd be over the moon to find you behind the door. I would struggle to connect, I think, with the suited and booted middle class academic. That probably wouldn't be for me, because I would have that perspective. How would you understand me?
Yeah.
How would you know?
Don't get it twisted. It does help knowing the theory side of it, because you're able to link certain things to the behaviours. But generally, and it helps, especially when I work with young people now as well. Obviously, they see me, I've got a gold tooth, I've got tattoos, dreadlocks. It does help bridge that gap for them. I'm not just another worker who's turning up. So there is certainly positives to it. But in terms of one of my other proud moments, so like I said, my grandma supported me to get through by borrowing me money or giving me money. I don't think I'm going to pay her back.
Grandma, the first time you've said that, yeah.
Sorry. But there was a moment where somebody did offer me an opportunity to do things that I no longer wish to do. And I did really seriously consider it, because it was that much of a struggle, and I did want to complete. And I almost took them up on that offer, but I didn't, because I was like, now my life has changed so much, I can't go back, because then I wouldn't be able to be here and tell people that it does get better with hard work. So that is one of my prouder moments.
Fair play, mate.
You know,
you were tested at that point, and you came through strong. So yeah, fair play, mate.
Yeah, you do get difficult moments when you are studying, especially when you do go back and decide to do things later on in life. You know, because we have more responsibilities than we do. If I went to uni at 20, I never would have picked this course, and I probably wouldn't be sat here right now. I doing whatever.
That's the thing with that, you know, with that occupation therapy and counselling. I think it's vital that you've got life experience. Because I mean, I know there's all the equality stuff out there these days, but if I were to go to a counsellor who was straight out of uni, 20 odd years old, they could have all the qualifications under the sun, but until you've lived a little, you can't empathise fully with people's life experience. So I think counselling, it almost seems to be like it's a second career rather
Yeah,
than a go straight into career.
yeah, definitely. And it's one of those that, strangely enough, like you said, there's certain careers you can go down. And when I went to uni, even though we're saying uni, people are probably thinking everyone is young. I was one of the youngest people in my class. So
Okay.
everybody else was older, 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
you know. So when you do go to certain places, it's very rare that you will see a counsellor who's
Mm.
not in their 30s or 40s. It's very,
Mm.
very rare that they're in their 20s because, like you said, they will have that bit of life experience. But
Yeah.
it's quite interestingly enough, my manager is younger than me, and we
Mm.
have certain conversations. And she's 28. Apologies if I'm wrong. And like we do have certain conversations. It's like, oh, you get that. You know, oh,
Yeah.
people look at me like I'm too young. And that's
Yeah.
what she said. And she's my manager. So,
Really.
yeah, yeah,
No way.
yeah, yeah.
We just, I mean, to touch on the level of like commitment that takes, am I right in thinking, because when I've looked into it myself, because you've mentioned before that you had to have therapy as part of your counselling qualification,
Yeah.
you have to fund that.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
obviously, you get your student loan and then you have to pay a lump sum. This is only if you go to the Sherwood, which is a very,
Mm.
very renowned institute for psychotherapy, very well known. So, but you get your student loan that covers what it's meant to cover, but then there's bits that you are meant to do. So you have to pay for personal therapy, you have to pay for supervision, and you need to do certain amount of hours.
Mm.
Supervision can be anything from £50 an hour upwards, depends on the supervisor. Um, and sometimes you are expected to do group supervision as well. So that's seeing one person for, you have to tally it up. So it's 1.5 hours to every two clients that you see. So it all has to match up. So
Yeah.
all these costs, it's not just going to see a therapist. You have to see a therapist virtually once a week for 3 years, and you have to fund that yourself.
Wow.
So it all depends on. Sometimes therapists will have a lesser rate to help you as a student
Yeah.
because it's in the same. Sometimes they don't. So it all depends on
So you're really
who you go through.
putting your money where your mouth is, mate,
Yeah,
and yeah.
and then you have to, in your second year, you get a placement, and sometimes you have to pay for that. You know, I was paying £60 a month, I think, to do my supervision. I mean,
Mm.
my placement for somebody else, essentially. So it's free. I'm paying you to work.
Yeah.
But you know what? In fairness to them, they were incredible. You
Mm.
know, they helped so much, and they even had little side courses as well that I was able to do. So during that, I got my relationship qualification, so I could counsel couples as well.
Okay.
So little things like that do help, but it is, in terms of the commitment side of it, if anybody is thinking of becoming a psychotherapist in the future, what I would recommend is that you save a little first, so then there's no surprises
Mm.
that come up, those little bumps in the road, and anything can happen when you're of age because you're paying your
Yeah, of
bills,
course,
you're
yeah.
probably looking after your own kids and, you know, supporting, you've got a partner, there's loads of things that can just come up. So having a little bit behind you know, because books can cost up to £50, certain books, you know, and you're going to be given a list of books that you need.
To do
You
that,
know,
yeah.
there might be 10 books on there. They're not saying get all 10, but those books could be, that book could be £20, that book could be £30, that book could
Mm.
be, you know, and then you have to go into, all right, there might be second-hand books that you can buy. There might be somebody who you know who's been on the course a few years ago that might be able to help you. Or if you was like me, you don't know anybody.
Mm.
So there's nobody you can recommend. You do this, you do that. The library's only open certain times. And then if you're studying and working full time, and then you've got to add in your working placement on top, sometimes it gets
Fair play, mate. I
it
mean,
gets difficult.
yeah, the more you say it, I mean, there's a lot to be said for you personally and your resilience to do that. First of all, to put yourself massively out your comfort zone, jump back into academia, but then the financial implication as well. So all credit to you, man.
It was
Um,
tough.
was it worth it?
100%. Like, looking back now, my life has it changed a lot? It's changed tenfold. So the opportunities that I've had, I wrote an article for Therapy Today, and that was one of my biggest achievements. I think just being able to be published in a magazine that it goes to all the therapists that are part of BACP. Just to be able to do that and have that opportunity, was great. I won. It's not called Student of the Year. I said it was Student of the Year, but it was contributions to life at SBTI. I won that in my final year because I would do videos and talk to other people and try and encourage others to go and be part of the Sherwood. And I did certain other things for the university as well. I'm part of the equality and diversity group called Unity as well. So I was given that award, and it was like you're talking to a man who struggled every day at school. I hated it, but because of this dyslexia, like I said, I thought I was stupid, but nobody picked up on it. Nobody, and even I speak to my parents about certain things, and they're like, "You just like to play football, and that was easy, And I get it. I do get it. Why would you want to go and sit with somebody who doesn't want to sit and read? But it was things that were missed. But now I look back and I think, bloody hell, I'm now on the cusps of doing or continuing to do great things.
You're at an awards this evening, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which is for?
It's the Black Achievers of the Year award. There's 6 different categories, and me and my dad have been nominated for different awards.
Incredible, mate.
Thank you. I'm not sure what category we're in because they don't tell you when they ring you.
Okay.
They just ring you up. So we got the phone call last month saying, congratulations, somebody's nominated you for this award.
Yeah.
We want to invite you and your dad down. It's a 3-course meal, black tie event. So
how does it feel
really,
getting
really
that recognition?
Nice, but I'm still not used to it in terms of, I do get that imposter syndrome in terms of there's times where I could be sat in a room with therapists and I would tell myself, I'm not a therapist, I'm not this, I'm not that. And I spoke to somebody else the other day and she was like, I'm trying to get to where you are. And sometimes I don't believe how far I've come in such a short space of time. So sometimes it's like, congratulations, Jill, these things, these nice things. I'm like, bloody hell, I don't know what to do with it because I'm not used to hearing it. I'm not used to being that person who gets congratulated, or a lot of people say, oh, I'm so proud of you. Now, that's a great thing to hear. I love it, but there's a part of me that's not used to it where it's like, bloody hell, what do I do with that now? It feels weird. And this is coming from somebody who is a psychotherapist. So when you hear this, you have to start getting used to it. You have to take it in and appreciate it. And now I'm starting to appreciate the plaudits that come with this. It's really nice, and like, even if I don't win later, it would just be a momentous occasion to be there with my dad.
Yeah.
For him to be acknowledged for the good things that he's done in life. Right? We were saying off camera, he retired from work at 37. I'm 38 now. And it's like, he's in his 60s now. And he still does so many great things that other people won't see. For instance, my mum still works. She's recovering from breast cancer. She's doing really well at the moment. So she's gone back to work. My dad still gets up at 5:30 in the morning to bring her to work every day.
Oh, bless
and
him.
He'll be the first one in the car park waiting for her every day without fail. But there's no awards for you being a good husband and a good dad. Like, I could ring him, or something's happened, or I need a tire. There was a razor blade in my tire when I was driving back from football, flat, and I had work. Ran my dad, and he's come and sorted it out. He doesn't get the acknowledgements other than me saying, "Oh, my mum said." People don't
Mm.
realize that he does it because he's just a good person.
Everyday heroes, mate, aren't
Yeah,
they? That's what it
yeah.
is.
So for him to be acknowledged, my guess is it's the Music Arts and Culture Award, because it was his 50th year anniversary. He's got a sound called Quantratone. He'll be happy that I mentioned that. And it was their
Okay.
50th year anniversary. So I'm assuming that's
Yeah.
what it will be. So yeah, it'd be just a great moment to share that
Yeah, of
with my
course.
dad.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, I'm asking this as like advice almost, like, but how do you start to accept those plaudits and the comments like I'm proud of you and well, because I'm getting it at the moment with doing this.
Hmm.
I find it, I don't think most of it breaches the surface. I've got my stock response, oh, cheers, mate, appreciate it. Thank you very much. And then it's gone,
Yeah.
you know. I'm struggling to let it sink in beneath the surface. Like at the
Yeah.
moment, got so much on. And I do feel like it's very much like, oh, okay, thank you, on to the next, thank you, on to the next. And it's constant drive
Yeah.
and goal setting without really ever spending much time in the moment. Are you got any advice for that?
Stop and smell the roses along the way for the journey. There is something that you're working towards where maybe you don't believe you're good enough, or maybe something has happened in your past where you've been shown that I'm not good enough as a person. So until you start believing that you are good enough, it doesn't matter what anybody else tells you that they're proud of you. Until you're proud, fully proud of yourself, and fully aware for yourself, it doesn't matter what anybody else tells you. So there'll be
Oh,
something for you where maybe you're not fully proud because something happened to you before and it didn't go how it was meant to go, and you was left with a feeling that I can't sit here and appreciate the good that I've done. I've just got to move to the next step and move to the next step and move to the next step. And before you know it, you've moved so long, you've not appreciated anything that you've done. Because what you're doing right now for people is a great thing. You should appreciate that. But it doesn't matter me telling you. You have to understand that.
that one
And
went in, mate. Yeah,
yeah,
that one went deep. Yeah, well, I can probably tell you exactly what it is as well. But yeah, yeah, that resonates, mate. That resonates. Yeah, it's a lot of it's common sense as well, to be fair. But just managing to sort of unpick it all.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, appreciate that. Good, appreciate that.
I've been on a similar journey. Like I said, I used to hate myself. I used to. Ooh. So when I was younger, um, I used to get called for the color of my skin being so dark. And now I look back, I love myself. I love everything. But there was times growing up that being as dark as I am wasn't a great thing. I remember it was somebody's christening, one of my cousins' christenings, and the photographer apologized and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Um, black skin doesn't show up as good as mixed race skin on the camera." And certain things like that, it stays with you. And I
Mm,
used to hate myself. And I never understood why. And then when I look back and think of the messages, what's been passed down from people to people, what's on TV, what's around, and it made such a big impact on my life. Um, one of the questions that I get asked quite often, why am I single, or why was I so single for so long in my life? I never liked myself. And it's one of those where if you don't like yourself, it doesn't matter what you're telling me until I
mm,
start to really understand for myself and really do that work. And then it just got to a stage for me that I'm all right, and I started
mm,
to believe it, and people are telling it, and I really believed it. And then it was, I'm starting to do things that others are benefiting from and appreciating. And then I just felt so much better, you know. I've done some good things. Like my friend, he's got a magazine. I'll have to send you the link. But he got me to do some modelling in his magazine. Genius Gang magazine, guys. Give them a follow. And I'm sat there in my tuxedo in this black and white photo I'll show you, and like just being able to do these types of things and talk about therapy in the magazine was just like, bloody hell, I would never have done that before, because one, I would never have believed in myself that I could do it, and the opportunity weren't afforded to me before. But now these things are coming, and it's no coincidence. I've started working hard and things have started to come into fruition. And like I said, my hope is to help others. I don't want to just be in this situation and then I don't give back to other people. Like I've got 3 godsons, and I try and encourage them to do as much in life as possible and speak to them and try and have those difficult conversations that you don't generally have with your parents. You know, I speak to my nephew is my godson. How it happened, there was nobody else there when we was in Jamaica, so I happened by default.
You'll do.
I was there. And I was trying to drag him here today, to be fair, but he couldn't find the time to come. But we have those serious conversations that he's unable to have with his dad. And then because of my work experience of working with young people and being in this field now, I'm able to try and gently encourage him to do certain things. And 3 weeks ago, I went to his college, not to find him, but I was doing a talk with some young people at the college, and he was there, which was nice for me to see him in his normal settings and encourage other young people at the college to, you know, it was about consent.
Yeah.
To learn about consent and to speak to another man in this sector about this and feel a bit more comfortable. Because one of the things one of the tutors was saying there was that there's not many men that come here and give these kind of talks, so it's nice that you are here for that. So
definitely, mate. There's definitely a beauty to what you're doing and the position and the background that you've got, and then taking that, because you are going to connect so much better than other people might do. And like you just said, that it seems to be a repeat thing. Oh, there's not many people like you doing this. There's a real power to that, because it is people like you that we need doing this and doing that, because you're going to connect and you're going to make a difference in all the right ways. So, you know, it's so important what you're doing. And if you can encourage other people to do it as well, mate, then absolutely brilliant, you know.
Yeah, I used to think there weren't room for me, but
I think there's all the room for
there's
you.
all the room.
That's the thing.
My current supervisor used to be my tutor in my final year. So sometimes we speak back about my last year in uni, and he often says how much I've changed and how things are now. And he says, do you remember when you used to tell me that there's no room for you in this sector? But now look, you're doing some great, there is room. And what I want to say is there's more than enough room for me, and there's room for others to follow me and come and join and sit here with me in this sector.
Yeah.
You know, it's not one of those where I'm trying to bogard and nobody else can. I want people to come and join and have conversations and sit and talk like this with, and I'm willing to do that. You know, obviously when I'm not at work, but I'm willing to sit and encourage and talk to anybody who wants that. There's room for us. That's what I will say.
There's not just room, Anthony. There's need.
There's need.
There's real need, and you know, to emphasise that, we talked about this pre-record, but when you talked about the waiting list, for people that have been victim of sexual abuse, and you said that waiting list is currently 3 years. I mean, that screams need. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot more perpetrators than there are therapists to help support the survivors. You know, obviously, not CES is a great organisation, same with Amara, but they work on funding. So it goes through the police commissioners and they get funding. So it's a free service, essentially, for the people waiting. That's why the wait list is, you know, it was 2.5 and it's just gone up to 3. You know, unless you can afford to go private and speak to somebody, and most people can't. You know, for a fact, like we said, with bills and things are sky high, bills are sky high right now,
Yeah,
and sometimes if you're given the choice of free therapy and waiting, or you might have to give up. I don't know. I know a lot. I don't have kids, but I know you have to
mm,
pay for certain things to go to certain places. But you might have to give certain things up,
yeah.
and that means I have to wait. If you can't afford to go therapy, unfortunately, sometimes you have to wait. You know?
It's a vicious cycle, really, isn't it? Because we were saying before, like it costs a lot of money to become a counsellor or
Yeah,
like a therapist. So you, and rightly so, have got to recoup those costs, and you've put that big investment into getting to the position. So you're going to charge accordingly.
yeah, yeah,
The sad thing about that is that then becomes a barrier to entry for an entire demographic of people that potentially need the service more than the affluent types that can afford the private therapy.
yeah,
It's I don't know what the answer is. You know what I mean? It's easy to point out the flaws, isn't it? But
yeah.
I don't know, other than more funding, more government interaction and intervention to make the service more accessible to people that can't afford it, because nobody should have to wait 3 years.
No, no, no. And that's probably one of the reasons why I do work full time. I would love to just work on A to B therapy full time, but unfortunately, it just it wouldn't be feasible for me
Mm,
to. I wouldn't be able to live right now. Maybe in a few years' time,
mm,
it can get bigger, and I'm able to. Maybe I apply for funding, because one of the things that I would like to do, is set up a men's group, where we come and have like a group process where we're all sat around and be able to talk and share. And then I'd like to go
mm.
into schools and colleges and speak to young people and help them, because I do believe prevention is better than cure
Yeah.
sometimes. And it's like, there's no point in offering support and help to somebody who's committed sexual crimes and they're already in prison for 20 years.
Mm,
Maybe it would be better to put in that preventative work from younger
yeah,
and
of course.
encourage that and show that, we can't do certain things. You can't do X, Y, and Z.
Mm,
Maybe the help from younger would be more beneficial. I'm not
yeah.
sure if I've said that 100% correctly, so please don't hold that against me. But
No, I got what you're
in
saying,
terms
mate.
of
I
what I'm
don't think you
trying to
said
say,
anything wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's education, isn't it?
Mm.
And again, it's that cycle of abuse and a lot of hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Um, and it is trying to, like you said, intervene, and that benefits everyone. It benefits, you're not going to have victims, or there will be less victims, but it's also going to benefit the person that throws his life away,
Mm.
that ends up in prison for 20 years due to some trauma that they actually experienced. And it's not, you got to be careful there, haven't you? Because you can sort of pacify people's, an attacker, as it were. You can sort of wash that away with, well, they did that because, you know, there's a certain psychological theory that sort of, I can't remember it now because I learned about it years ago, but essentially it was quite dangerous, really, because it sort of stated that everybody's action is a result of something that happened to
Yeah.
them. Therefore, you can kind of nullify blame for, everyone becomes blameless because you can attribute their action to something that was put onto them. I
Yeah.
don't know if what I'm saying is making
No, no,
sense
yeah,
here,
yeah, definitely.
but you can, and it's the same. You could probably go into most prison systems and find a hell of a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
a lot of childhood trauma in the prison systems. That could be the cause, but does that then sort of, the people that have committed a crime, does that take that away?
Does it absolve it? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's tricky ground. Again, it's another one I don't know the answer, because again they create more victims,
Yeah.
and it's that cycle again. But it does need something, and what you've just said there, the prevention. It's that pulling, stepping away, isn't it? One person stepping out of that circle to break it,
Yeah.
break that cycle of abuse. And again, man, the work that work would be amazing. Just needs more people to do it.
And, if I was able to get funding to do that, it would be great to be able to say I've got a few days a week where I could go into schools and go speak to people, go to youth centres and do different things. And I mean, I could do that after I've finished a 9-hour shift at work, and then would I be giving my
Your
full
best,
self
yeah,
best to the people who I'll be talking to? Probably not, just through just being tired of
yeah.
working, throughout. But hopefully, things will change. And I feel for myself, essentially, I may not see loads of people with A to B therapy. I want to, like I said, inspire others to get on that train of thought to either get into therapy or become therapists. And if I can encourage people to do that, I feel that would be a great thing for me.
Definitely, mate.
So I'll be taking opportunities, like I said. So I'm so thankful for you to be offering me this opportunity.
Hey, the thanks are all mine. But I think you're potentially onto something, because by allocating your time to do something like this, you can reach thousands of people in one hit. And it's like, I mean, we're sat in an office, just us two now. But when this goes out, it's going to be in thousands of ears. So, you'd almost be sat on a huge stage to reach this amount of people, captive audience that you can deliver that message to. So perhaps focusing on things like these kind of podcasts, getting as much diversity as you can in terms of those, because your story, it's one that benefits everybody in every demographic. I mean, my podcast is angled towards the trades and the rising mental health crisis within construction. I'm sure you've probably heard me say, but it's the worst demographic in the UK for male suicide. So it's overtook things like farmers and vets that used to be typically very bad. On average, at the moment, over 2 men per day in construction are taking their own life. Working days. There's over 10 families a week that are getting that phone call, and that ripple effect then reaches out to everybody that knew them, friends, family. It's horrific. Have you got any thoughts, being from your background, as to why construction?
Obviously, I've never worked in construction, but I could be wrong. But I believe there's a level of bravado. There's that level of, I don't want to look weak in front of my work colleagues if I'm going through stuff, because you see videos on Instagram and on Facebook, and there's always that banter, there's always that high level of goofery going on with the good work that's been done, but there's never that level of, I can come and sit down and talk to you about my problems. We're here for banter, we're here for a beer on a Friday after we finished the hard work, but we're here for each other to sit down and talk to. And generally, most people will say, when it's too late, unfortunately, when the bad thing has happened, oh, why didn't you come and talk to me? Why? All the whys. It's always all the whys. Because sometimes we can't see that maybe behind the laughter, there is some real sadness going on, But that is my guess, is the bravado, that level of banter, that level of not wanting to look weak.
Tears of a clown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to shame myself, because then these guys are going to laugh at me for the next month or so, and then I've already got problems. I don't want to then be laughed at because of telling you.
I wanted to ask you that question, mate. I've asked a lot of people the question, but I think it's interesting to ask somebody that is outside of the industry, the outsider's view in as to why. And what you've said comes up a lot. It's that building industry is full of alpha men, big, hard men. We don't, what you said before, we get on with our own problems and troubles. The reality is it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Your size doesn't mean anything, We've all got emotions. We've all got stuff that goes on, and we're the same as anybody else. The industry is screaming that there's a crisis. It's like I say, it's the worst industry in the UK, so it clearly needs something. And you've hit the nail on the head, and it's a message I've tried to deliver several times, which is, it's not just about talking. Like, people will only talk if there's somewhere to listen or someone to listen. and a safe space to do so. If we don't provide that, and I believe there's a responsibility on all of us to provide that for our colleagues and peers and people around us in business and in construction, that we provide that. What you just said, is somebody actually there to go, if you're struggling, talk to me, and that there is a responsibility on all of us to do that.
Yeah. And I feel with this one as well, is keep offering, because a lot of people, because they're not used to having that offer, the first response, oh no, I'm all right. No, I'm all right. But if you've noticed something in the first place to make that offer, keep noticing, keep looking, keep offering that space, because eventually they may decide to take you up on that offer. And that might be the difference to one person not deciding to go as far as what the stats suggest. Keep making that offer, keep being supportive. Yes, keep having the banter. Yes, keep going for the pint. Keep having that side, but also just create that little bit of space for your friend to be there and talk to. If because my guess is a lot of the people who have got to that stage will tell you, if you get that the chance to speak to them, is that they had nobody to talk to, they had nobody to turn to, and it's very interesting. You want to go out Friday night? There's hands up. You could find them. But it's very sad that people feel that when I'm down in the dumps and I'm really struggling and I need somebody, that they can't find somebody. They don't feel that one of those people that they go out for a pint with would sit and listen to them.
I think there's a difference, mate, between drinking partners and friends.
Yes.
And again, the construction industry is quite well known for, it's got some fucking hard-working people in. It's hard graft. And we work hard Monday to Friday, but a lot of hard partiers as well. So you work hard Monday to Friday, and then Friday comes and it's you unwind through drink and drugs. There's a lot of addiction problems. There's a lot of drug and alcohol situations within construction, and what you just said there's quite right. You quite easily find 5 people to go for a drink with you. Would you find 5 people that will listen to you if you're struggling? Maybe, but we don't ask.
We don't ask, so we won't.
That's it. And like you just said, asking people more than once, or even in that social setting when you're out for a beer, just tone down the banter for 30 seconds and just say, look, in all seriousness, mate, I can see you going through some shit. If you do want a serious chat sometime, just pull me to the side. I'm here for you. Now we get back to the banter. If you don't want to talk about it now, that's cool. Yeah. Just letting you know. Just popping that flag up for a minute to say, I'm here if you need it. Just letting you know it's safe. You want to talk to me, that's cool. If you don't, that's fine. We can still have a beer and have a laugh. But I'm here if you need to talk.
Yeah, that offer helps massively. Definitely something that's worth thinking about and doing. And it will help. Even if you sit and think it won't help, it will help. Those couple offers might be the difference.
Yeah. Appreciate that, mate. I appreciate that. Anthony, before we wrap things up, mate, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you wanted to talk about today?
What have we discussed? Not really. I feel we've covered quite a bit. Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here.
Appreciate that, mate.
My hope is that this, maybe when the new studio comes up, I'll come
100%,
again.
Yeah.
We can talk more. This is definitely what is needed.
I want to do that, mate. I said this pre-record. Once we've got the new spot, I want to be able to have some more constructive conversations around set topics.
Yeah.
I'd love to get professionals such as yourself back on, like a panel type thing, and talk about, really delve deeply into some issues and have those conversations. So yeah, mate, 100%. Once the move is done, we'll definitely. I respect your time. So if you've got time to come down again, mate, 100%, I'd love to have you on. Obviously, I'll put all your details in the episode description, but for the people listening, where can they find you?
A to B Therapy on Instagram and Facebook. I've got a website that's currently being done. Yeah, they're the two main places. And obviously on my Instagram, it will have my work number as well. And you can contact me on WhatsApp as well as text, or just give that phone number a call. But yeah, mainly I do answer through Instagram on my business page at
I
A to
mean,
B Therapy.
if anybody has listened and thought, I like the sound of this guy,
Mhm.
I'd like to speak to him about something, do you do, I've seen on your card, mate, you do online? So
Yeah,
is that
so
anywhere in the country?
I can do online or over the phone. I like face to face personally,
Yeah.
but sometimes we're busy, we've got things going on. So sometimes over the phone and online works. That can be done by over Zoom or Teams or even a FaceTime. I'm thinking about trying to set up an app where I put up videos and do little bits and bobs, but that's
Mm.
probably something that will come later on in the future. So if there is anybody listening who's thinking about getting into therapy or just that first step, my inbox is open. Just drop me a message, and it doesn't have to essentially come to see me
Mm.
as your therapist. Maybe I'm just that person to help you find somebody else, or so what I will say is, don't let shame hold you back. Do not let other people's views of things cloud your judgment. So with therapy, you can shed shame. And somebody once told me, other people's opinions of you are none of your business. So don't worry about what anybody else thinks. If you need to reach out for help, to talk to somebody, you should do it.
Well said, mate. That's a good place to wrap things up, Anthony. Massive thank you again for your time today, mate. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate everything that you've said today. I've took a lot away from it, and I always think that if I've sat here and been immersed in the conversation, then other people will be too. So really appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To everyone listening, I'll catch you again soon on the next one. Actually, to top things off, this is probably the last episode. In fact, it is the last episode that will ever be recorded in these chairs, in this place. So we are on the move to our new, bigger studio. Before I wrap things up as well, I've got a hoodie and a t-shirt and a cap for you as well,
Oh,
mate.
thank you.
Big thank you to the Funky Peach for supplying those. If you need any workwear, get onto those guys. Their details will also be in the description. But yeah, the next time that you tune in, there should be a different background. Stay tuned.